Hi there, this is Josh from Literary Gladiators, and today I'm here to wrap up my reading for the year of 2020. As always, I like to do a countdown from 10 to 1 of my 10 favorite books that I read in 2020. 2020 was a very challenging year for obvious reasons, and I did a lot more at my job. I've been scheduled for many more hours, but we were still able to film. We filmed the 11th season during the first 3 months of the year, and then we filmed our 12th season during the summer. Uh, so, but as far as reading was concerned, I really was able to accomplish a lot. I surpassed my Goodreads reading goal of 35 books, and I was able to add even more to that. And a lot of the reading toward the end of the year were books of my choosing, not for any discussions or for judging of the BookTube prize, even though both really helped me get that number up. But I was able to read some things I wanted to go over. I got some more plays read. And now I'm going to count down from 10 to 1 my favorites overall. And coming in at number 10 is The Complete Guide to Rat Training by Debbie Ducommun. I acquired more books on the topic of rats because it became an interest of mine. That doesn't necessarily mean that I plan to start getting rats for pets and raising and training them, but maybe some point a few years down the road I might be interested in doing so. It would be very interesting to examine because from what I've heard, the way that rats think and the way that they function is very similar to the human train of thought. But this book examines what you need to know in order to properly train them, from the basics and laying down the groundwork to simple tricks to more complicated and advanced tricks. Debbie Ducommun is a proven authority on the topic. She has raised and trained several rats of her own. She has appeared on various television shows. She was on some late night shows. She was on To Tell the Truth among two imposters, and the panelists had to guess who the real Debbie Ducommun was. This book is very assuring. It makes a great argument in the favor of someone wanting to own a rat as a pet. And from what I've heard, if you are going to own a rodent as a pet and you want to make the best out of your experience, rats are by and far the best over ferrets, hamsters, gerbils, chinchillas, mice. There are going to be people that argue otherwise, but I think from what I've gathered, rats are number one as far as getting the best out of a hands-on attached experience is concerned. But this looks like it's going to be a great book to refer back to. The way that she utilizes pictures is just extraordinary. She uses these visuals and little tidbits of information. She also incorporates random bits of information as the book progresses. And she does an outstanding job laying things out and organizing her thoughts to prove that this, even though it doesn't look huge, it is filled with a great deal of quality on the topic. Number 9 on my list for the best books that I read this year is No Visible Bruises by Rachel Louise Snyder. I read No Visible Bruises for the BookTube Prize. I ranked it in second place for the quarterfinals and then in third place for the finals. It finished in third place overall, and this book proves to be an authority on the topic of domestic violence and really enlightens us with information about things we did not know on the topic and how being able to combat the issue comes with recognizing the more obvious signs and being able to actually do something to reverse and discourage, obviously discourage, but be able to hone into the whys as opposed to the whats regarding the causes of domestic violence. And Snyder really honed in on the topic with her research and her various examples and instances, and how society needs to do a much better job not just pulling out those that are issues, but being able to annihilate the issues among offenders. I would have ranked this higher, both in the BookTube Prize and in the on this list, if it was not for the moments of subjectivity, be it political or as far as being able to give us every possible realm of examples is concerned. She does point out for the latter, but and nevertheless, I think that this No Visible Bruises is a very strong and educational work, but I think that if it was more objective on the political front, I think that it would have been a very I think that this would have been up even more notches. But number 9 on a top 10 list of various books is still a great accomplishment. Number 8, I chose Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrow, and I read this for the BookTube Prize as well. In the quarterfinals, I ranked it number 1, and in the finals, I ranked it number 2. And whereas there were challenges regarding objectivity in No Visible Bruises, I think that in Catch and Kill there was a great sense of objectivity, being able to point out and inform us much more about the instances of sexual harassment in the entertainment industry among leading forces, be it film producers like Harvey Weinstein or newscasting heavyweights like Matt Lauer and the other upper leaders in NBC. Farrell also makes mention to instances regarding Donald Trump, his experiences within his own family, because his father, Woody Allen, has had issues as far as harassment is concerned. Ronan Farrow had difficulty publishing his findings, but he was able to strike a deal. He was able to get it published with the New Yorker, which the New Yorker does take a political position as far as seeing the world events is concerned. However, Farrow's goal was to bring light to this issue as a whole and expose those high-end rich men who were taking advantage of females that were looking to make their way within the entertainment industry by fulfilling their sexual desires among them. And I think that this was such an enlightening work that is quite a bold but prosperous landmark on behalf of Ronan Farrow and his journalistic work. Number 7, I picked Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury. Ray Bradbury is one of my favorite writers of all time. I personally preferred Fahrenheit 451 and The Martian Chronicles, but this in itself was still very fantastical, and I felt that it was very mind-blowing on its subject matter regarding the coming-of-age experience of two boys, and also one of the boys, Will, his relations with his relationship with his dad, and how being an adult, what comes with being an adult isn't just being a kid one moment and a grown-up the next. It does come with a lot of mental realizations that will radically alter the way you see the world, the way you think. And this book just does an amazing job bringing to light that the world comes with a great deal of horror, but what matters is that you are able to combat these horrors and the potential struggles and not let it consume you. And one of the best ways to provide such a backdrop is with the carnival, which is it's something that kids see very magically, but yet when you look at the mechanics, it really just requires people doing fantastical things, and in this case, they meld those magical elements and the horrors of society with one another. And the motives may mean something different depending on what they want to get out of it is concerned. Something Wicked This Way Comes was deemed to be a direct inspiration to Stephen King's It, where it has very similar themes and uses the mode of child entertainment of the clown. Clowns I think this was what you could call the beginning of the end for clowns being a grand thrill for youth entertainment. They've become more of a fear. Colorophobia has really picked up. People are more afraid than they are amused by them. But back to Something Wicked This Way Comes, there is so much that is worth examining within this piece. I definitely want to go over this again. And characters and their situations and their struggles are so solid and meaningful, and you really get a great deal of examination of the world through their eyes and their circumstances. Number 6, I picked On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. Vuong is known for being a poet, but this is his very first novel, and he does such a superb job. This is an account from a little dog, and little dog writes letters to his mom. And these are recounting various instances of his life, not in any particular order, but how they come to him. It is a stream of thought as far as events are concerned. Things will come to him at different occasions. He may jump around. He even has this account where he talks about Tiger Woods and his relations to a little dog's own story. I felt that this was a very emotionally gripping work. It was very raw and meaningful. I judged this in the octafinals of the BookTube Prize. I ranked it number 1. This reached the semifinals. It was among the books in my heat. It made it the furthest, and I was really happy about that. But this was just such a powerful read, and it's really something that really stuck with me. And I definitely think that more people should be looking into this, and I hope that Ocean Vuong explores prose much more. Coming in at 5th is Solitary by Albert Woodfox. The top 5 on my list were all 5-star reads. From 6 to 10, they were all 4.5. And funny enough, everything that was under my top 10, I rated 4 stars or less. But Albert Woodfox grew up in Louisiana. He was in and out of trouble with the law. Some of it was of his own doing. The way that he felt that he couldn't make it out of the only way that he would be able to make it through life was through criminal acts. And then there were some instances where he got into trouble basically because of who he was as a person, and that was a young black man in the wrong place at the wrong time, including the instance with the car dealership. But while Woodfox was staying in prison, he was accused of murdering a prison guard, and this led to his over 40 years in solitary confinement. And Woodfox opens our eyes up to his experiences of what it is like to be in solitary confinement. I learned a lot because it wasn't, I thought it was much more basic, but it is far more complicated than one could imagine. But at the same time, it is far more heartbreaking to see that someone like this spent over 4 decades of his life locked up and not being and just losing every opportunity to make something of himself, even though he made the best out of his circumstances as far as educating himself and getting into reading was concerned. He was among the Angola Three with Herman Wallace and Robert Hillary King. King would be released sooner, and he became a spokesperson and advocate for their cause. He wrapped himself around that because he felt that he needed to do that and bring attention to those that were in this particular situation. Herman Wallace, unfortunately, just made it out, and they were about ready to arrest and imprison him again, but Wallace had died before that ever happened. But to this day, Woodfox and King are still living. Woodfox is no longer imprisoned. And I felt that this book, one of its great accomplishments is how atmospheric it was, and how you felt that you were in. Woodfox did a great job putting you, the reader, in his situation, and you were following along to the point that you were immersed in the story. I read this for the finals of the BookTube Prize, and I ranked it number 1. It was unfortunate that it only reached 5th place, but I thought that this was so strong, especially for everything that's going on right now. I think if there's anything that comes out of this, there should be a greater sense of repair within the criminal justice system, and being able to examine and elaborate a bit more on everything that is taking place. My pick for number 4 is The Bald Soprano by Eugene Ionesco. This book includes other plays of his, but I read The Bald Soprano and I thought it was fantastic. As far as works of absurdism is concerned, this one examines a lot. It clearly made me a fan of Ionesco's plays, and I want to read much more. But some of the questions that are pondered in this play include, why do people really care about the affairs of others? The whole idea, just because you're married to someone, does it mean that you truly know who they are? It ponders, are there things that are really worth arguing over or making a big deal about? And this one really takes those topics and stretches it out as far as possible. And it's just so ridiculous that it's brilliant. And that's what makes a great absurdist play. Because it's a play that's meant for theater, I think that there are some that are going to benefit more from actually seeing it, because there's a great deal of stage direction and changing options. But I think Bald Soprano was Ionesco's very first play, and from there he really made the best out of his contributions to theater. Number 3, I picked The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, and this really gives a greater insight to the Holocaust in Europe, specifically in France, and concentrates on the home front among the women of that time. France, during World War II, was occupied by the Nazis, and as long as they were compliant, they were not in as deep of a threat of being imprisoned. However, they did have to do as they were told. They did have to, if a Nazi soldier was looking to be quartered in their house, they had to take them in, and they had to do what they were told, and otherwise they could get themselves into huge trouble, which included, if there was a Jewish person in their area, they had to bring light to who they were, otherwise they themselves could get into trouble. But we see this through the eyes of two completely different siblings, two different sisters. There's Vianne, who is a bit more of a compliant member of society, but she does her best to be able to do the right thing when possible. And then you have Isabella, who is a bit more of a rebel, who is willing to fight for what she believes in, even if it means putting her life on the line. There were also moments in present day that you really didn't develop an idea for until the story started to conclude. But as it concluded, it was so heartfelt and emotional that I saw myself choking up. And I think that's what makes a powerful work, examining something that is not often examined. The Holocaust and works about the Holocaust are often examined, but from similar lenses. This is something that's completely different, and that's what we need. My second favorite book that I read this year was The Bad Beginning by Lemony Snicket. This is the first book in a series of unfortunate events, and I can happily say that I am an enthusiast for this series and am eager to make my way through it. I got the complete box set, if you can call it that. It's not in a box, but they're all bound up together. I became well aware of a series of unfortunate events because a friend of mine really enjoyed reading it. The movie with Jim Carrey had come out during that time, even though that just bound up the first 3 books, and they didn't continue because of how unsuccessful it was. I really admire that this book goes against the traditions. It is by no means predictable. It is by no means structured the way that I've seen a lot of them, but it only gives you more reason to love this book and this series. Lemony Snicket often will break fourth wall as he tells the story, but it's all for good purposes, and I think that that contributes to what makes it more original. The 3 kids, Violet, Klaus, and Sonny, definitely garner my sympathy. I personally favor Klaus because he is an avid reader like myself. But all of them have my they have my sympathy for what they are going through and what they continue to go through, because Count Olaf, who is their uncle that has taken them in, is one of the most immoral and antagonistic villains that I have seen in literature. He is just as evil as they come, and I think that if their parents were able to elaborate more on the circumstances of their kids, I think that they would have turned away from him in a heartbeat. But they didn't know what was going to happen, and they didn't know it was going to happen so soon. But a lot of these things are what advances the story here, and I'm really inclined to read my way through the series. And now we have reached number 1, the best book that I read in 2020. And one of the good things about 2020 is that I've been able to dip more into my interest of plays. I've wanted to read more plays and get a greater understanding of that particular genre. And number 1 on my list is a play, and it is one of the grand classics in American theater. And that is A Streetcar Named Desire by Tennessee Williams. In particular, it is this play here. But the story of A Streetcar Named Desire follows Stanley and Stella Kowalski, and they are visited by Blanche Dubois, and at the time Stella is pregnant, and Stanley and Blanche are both very strong personalities, and they are both very flawed individuals, but at the same time, we as viewers are seeing the play from its exterior. And we get these ideas of what Stanley and Blanche's flaws are, and the explanations that both have for one another, and from what we see, are perfectly reasonable explanations. But we do not get their interior motives, and that is where things become very complex. I would say that the greatest stand-in for us as the reader or the viewer comes in the character of Mitch, who is a card-playing friend of Stanley's, and he falls for Blanche at some point, and that is probably as close as we are going to get to a clear view of what exactly is going on, aside from what we are reading from the script itself and the events that take place. This play is very haunting and eerie. I would say that scene 10 out of 11 really, if you've read the play, you know exactly what I'm talking about, but the way that it approaches this moment and the way that it really, you know how brutal it is, but yet it requires you to use your mind to be able to develop the picture. It only gives you so much. It only gives you enough. A Streetcar Named Desire really brings attention to the unfortunate cycle of the abusive men in society, and how the world can do much better with finding the right and more compassionate male to be with, and yet people like Stanley continue to get away with the things that they do, and how women continue to run back to them. It's not just between Stanley and Stella, or Stanley and Blanche, but the other, Steve in particular, had an instance as well where he and Eunice had a conflict. But it's not to say that Blanche is a victim, because Blanche also took advantage of people and their resources. She was an opportunity seeker, but it still gave Stanley no right to treat people the way that he did. And one of the other great accomplishments of A Streetcar Named Desire is its use of details, and especially the auditory description, and how the auditory really plays into the events that are taking place within the piece. It really develops a great sense of atmosphere, and it's definitely a play that I was glad to be able to revisit. I read it for the first time in English 2 back in 2011, but I revisited it for a discussion on our channel, and I'm so glad that I did so. I'm so glad that we were able to discuss it. There was a lot to examine, and I think that with each visit, there's going to be even more to examine. But I think that those are the great kind of plays that we have in society. Here is a stack of my 10 favorite books that I read in 2020. A great wide range of genres, a relatively diverse group of writers, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what I have in store for 2021. There's going to be some more material for general discussions. I'd like to do some more reading outside of the discussions so I can contribute some more individual reviews to the channel. I'm probably going to be sitting out of this year's BookTube prize, because I would like to concentrate a little bit more on some independent projects, but I would like to get back into the BookTube Prize at some point, because I think it is so important to have booktubers providing their voice for good quality fiction and nonfiction in the world of reading today. But I want to thank you for checking out this video. I want to thank everybody for their support in 2020. I'm really eager to contribute more material in 2021, and I'm certain that the other gladiators are going to be eager to do it as well. We have a lot of great things in store, and if you really like what you see, I encourage you to subscribe. I encourage you, if you really would like, to become a patron on our Patreon account. I'll leave a link down below, and you can please feel free to help us out in any which way possible. But more immediately, if you want to talk about these books, I would really be happy to do so in the comments. Thank you. Have a happy, healthy, safe, and prosperous new year in 2021, and keep reading.